Hello, my beanie babies. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a long time, but you guys, please forgive me. But the most exciting news that I have, we're up to 70 beanie babies, and I'm so excited. It's small, but we get in there. Anyway, today I have my girl Jennifer, and we're going to talk about a topic that's been in my opinion, that has been swept under the rug, or a topic that's been identified, but a lot of people really don't know what the challenges are, and they know something is not right that's going on in their marriage, or something that they've gone through in the past, and could not identify what those problems or what that issue was. So I invited Jennifer, and she was so kind enough to come and sit with me today, just to have a little conversation, and to let you guys know, now we're not professionals, we're not claiming to be professionals, we're speaking from experience, we're speaking from some things that we've gone through, some things that we've dealt with in our relationships, and we just want to bring it to you guys, because there may be someone, male or female, that's dealing with some of these symptoms and really don't know what it is, or do not know the name for it, because there is a name. So I'm going to let Jennifer introduce herself and just give us her story and some of the things that she's gone through from experience. We're speaking from experience only. It's nothing that no one told us. It's nothing that we're guessing. It's everything that we've gone through, and we just want to share it.
Hi y'all, thanks for having me on, Sabrina. So Sabrina and I have talked a lot. We've been friends for a long time, and over the years kind of compared and confided about different things that we've gone through. So as we were talking a few months ago, as I'm currently going through a divorce and moving on in terms of rebuilding my life, we talked about some of the signs of getting involved with a narcissist. How do you know you're involved with a narcissist? And why is it a problem? How does it affect you? And what can you do about it? So as we've talked, we compared notes and kind of realized that we've both been in similar circumstances. But we figured if we have had some of these experiences and didn't immediately recognize some of the problems, and we're both, strong, intelligent, confident women, that there's probably many other women out there. And as I have talked to other people, you start to realize that more people are dealing with this than you realize. But even as I've gone through therapy myself, just to try and figure out how did I even get myself in this kind of situation, I never would have identified myself as the kind of woman who would get involved in a relationship where I was giving up so much power. So we're going to talk about that narcissistic behavior, and what are some of the signs, what are things that might be happening, and sometimes it's things you just don't even realize because they've been so subtle for so long. I know one of the things that we talked about is how hard it is to talk to other people about it, because most people in your circle, and sometimes including your family, generally will see that person as being very charismatic, very caring. They usually have a job, they put themselves together well spoken. People like them, essentially. And if you sort of talk about some of the things that go on behind closed doors, people just don't believe it about this person, because generally they're a person who's well liked, or comes across as very caring. So it makes it very challenging when you're involved in that kind of relationship, because you feel like you have nowhere to turn. You know what their perception is of that person, and it's very unlikely that they show those signs when they're out and about in public. It's always behind closed doors, and often you're the only one that witnesses that behavior, which makes it very difficult.
And I think also when they know, or when that person knows that people like them, when they know that nobody else really knows, I think a lot of people use that to their advantage. That
how they keep their control, because they know most people don't have a clue and wouldn't believe any of that behavior. And that's part of how they operate. They isolate you, so they create an environment where you second guess everything about yourself. Things you think, things you feel, what you wear, how you speak, how you wear your hair, and the whole goal is to undermine things about you to allow them to exert their will. They want everything to be their way. It's always about them and what they feel. And one of the examples that to me is stands out. There's a few things for me that over the years really stood out that were kind of the big red flags where it's like, okay, I've really got a problem here. And at the time, sometimes it seems like it's a small thing, but as they add up over the period of months and years, that's where you can see that pattern of behavior. So one of the things for me was when one of my kids had a birthday, and we always would let them pick a restaurant that they wanted to go eat. For example, one of my kids always wants to go to the Japanese hibachi restaurant. I can't remember the restaurant that this particular child chose that year, but whatever the restaurant was, when I let my husband know that that's where they wanted to go, his response was, well, what am I supposed to eat there? And it's like, I don't care if it was Chuck E. Cheese or Cece's Pizza. If that's what the child wants, so you eat something at home, or you eat something else later. It's about the child and making it the best experience for them. In my case, this person was always very negative at home. Nothing was ever good enough. Everything was critical and nothing was ever a compliment. If I, for example, got my hair done, he would deliberately not comment on my hair for several days. And then when he finally did, he'd be like, what'd you do to your hair? So you sort of always feel like you're not quite measuring up, or you've done something wrong. You're waiting for that other shoe to drop. Whenever I would actually disagree or argue, I'd get the cold shoulder. Sometimes for days, he would literally act like I wasn't even in the house. Wouldn't acknowledge my presence at all. And now couples argue, and we understand that. This goes beyond the normal level of arguing. This is like deliberately undermining your feeling. And then it's like at the flip of a switch, all of a sudden everything's fine. There's no apology. It's like one day they decide they're not mad anymore, and they just start talking to you as though everything's fine.
Nothing ever happened.
And if you try to say, well, what was going on? Why were you so upset? They'll act like you're crazy. I wasn't upset about anything. Nothing was bothering me.
And to me, it's just it's sad that anybody, male or female, will have to be in that type of environment, because you're always walking on eggshells. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to look, like something's wrong with you, because it's going to backfire on you, because everything is going to be piled up. It's going to be piled up on your shoulders. And, you get to the point where, like, you really think something is wrong with you. Like, what in the heck is wrong with me?
Well, and then over time, not even just that, you start to feel like you're crazy, because you're thinking, like, maybe I really did, maybe I am doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing. Like, maybe I need to change something. And so you start making these changes because you want to keep the peace. Like, I know in my case, in the beginning, there were a lot of arguments because I would constantly push back and question some of the behavior, but the argument or I was told to shut up. I was told, things like my job wasn't as important, my income wasn't valuable, I wasn't allowed to spend money on things that, that I chose to spend money on, but he could spend money on whatever he chose without any discussion. So you over time, you start to really question your own sanity and your own perception of reality. And there are little things that will happen that will point out to you that this isn't normal, this isn't right. And for me, the catalyst that really finally got me to take some action and make some changes was when my stepsister, who I had not seen in over 20 years, came to visit with her daughter and stayed with us. And she made the comment because he would come home from work. He'd come in the house. He would say hello, and he was very polite with her. And he would go upstairs, and then he would get upstairs, and he would text me, "Can you bring me something to drink?" Or he was constantly looking for things to pull me away from her. But he wouldn't like come down and he would text me and say he was hungry. "Can you bring me something to eat?" Or "What'd you make for dinner?" And he was not engaged or interacting, with this like family group at all. He had no interest in getting to know her. Well, after a couple of days of this, she was like, "Is it always like this?" And
She picked up.
she really picked up. She kind of pointed out to me how not normal this behavior was. And while it's like on some level you know it, you get so used to being in that routine, keeping the peace, just doing those things that you lose sight of the fact that it is really not normal.
Right.
And
so what was your breaking point? Well, how did you get to the point where, you just got to the point where something's not right, and I'm not happy, and I'm not happy, not because I'm not happy, but I'm not happy because something's wrong, and I know something is wrong.
Right. I think for me, for years, I had managed to justify a lot of the behavior because he traveled a lot for work. He made a lot more money than I did. And so, the whole making sure, the house was kept a certain way, or the dinner was cooked, or, staying on top of the kids and all of that expectation, I sort of took it on because, he travels 3 or 4 days a week and he's, got this high demand job, and I sort of fell for his line of, why things were the way they were. It wasn't until he lost his job for a period of time and I was working, and I would, I often have to drive a couple of hours, because I have several locations that I support. So there were times when I would get home at 7:30 at night, sometimes 8 o'clock, and I would walk in and he'd want to know what was for dinner. Now he's at home, he's not working. There's dishes in the sink, the laundry hadn't been done, basically nothing's been done, no food has been cooked. Or when I would call to say I was on my way home, he'd suggest I pick something up, and it was usually not something that was on my way. It was something that would take me out of my way. But then he would complain because I got home so late. And it was kind of this constant, I felt like, okay, you're here all day long, and you're not doing anything. And I think for me, that was the point where I realized, you know what, I don't need this. And I think it was actually a blessing to some degree because I realized, well, I can't afford to make it on my own if I have to. And I just had to get to a point that whatever the outcome, I'd be okay. And I stayed longer than I would have if we didn't have a son together. He was young. There was the constant threat that he would take my son.
And I think for a lot of women, that's the fear. The threats. The always having something that they think that they can hold over you. That will make you stay in that situation that you already know that's not healthy for you.
Exactly.
But you'll continue to stay, like you said, because of your son, or because to make you feel that you can't make it on your own, or because he makes more money. They make you feel that you can leave, but you're not going to make it. You're going to always come back. And then you find yourself staying another year or two.
And that's what it really comes down to, is that in the very beginning, before it gets to that point where you feel like it's too late, that's when you're going to have those gut feelings. There's those red flag moments, and I had them. There were many. I overlooked them. Don't allow your circumstances or your desire to have a certain life that you have envisioned make you overlook these toxic behaviors. Because ultimately, if you can't be who you are, so for example, if you're somebody who swears, and not everybody does. I do. I was just raised that way. I was raised with a bunch of bikers, and in a household where my dad had a foul mouth.
Mhm.
But if that's who you are, you should be able to comfortably do that in your own home and not be chastised and reprimanded. Now, it's one thing if you have an adult conversation saying, hey, we're going to have children, or we have a young child, and this is not the environment. Now, yeah, I'm not going to swear like that in front of my young children. But if it's done in a way that makes you feel small and makes you feel like you are wrong for being who you are, then that's not acceptable.
Right.
Things like when we met, I worked out regularly. I was in very good shape, and yet it was always a problem for me to go to the gym and make time for the gym. It wasn't something he supported and encouraged. It was always taking time away from the family. Now, to everybody else, he would talk about it as though, oh yeah, this is what Jen does, and she's in great shape, and she works out.
But behind
closed doors,
totally
it was, if
different.
I got up and went early before work, it was a problem because I was waking him up. And if I went after work, it was a problem because the kids hadn't seen me all day. So when do I get that time for myself?
Right.
It was there was never time for myself. Even simple little things, like on a weekend, if I, on a rare occasion, would lay down to take a nap, he would do nothing to prevent the kids from coming in and, waking, like within 5 minutes. Or he would be in and out of the bedroom, turning the TV on to watch the game, or things like that, where it was just a lack of consideration. But if he was taking a nap, of course, everybody's quiet and they're in another room and they're staying out of the way and letting him do whatever it is, he needs to do for as long as he needs to do it. You'll have those gut feelings, you'll have those interactions, and if you have them, listen to them. That's the best thing I can tell you. And if you're in it, and again, this is not advocating for everybody who's involved with a narcissist to get a divorce, but if you're in a relationship and you feel hopeless, if you feel like you're depressed, if you feel like you don't have a voice, stand up for yourself. And what I've learned over this past year and a half is that it's never as terrifying as it feels like it's going to be.
But they want you to feel.
They want you to feel like it's going to be. And initially, the first few times, you definitely are going to feel that nervousness. And sometimes there is fallout and there is pushback, but it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. And you kind of have to just get to a point where you're willing to accept that they're not going to ever be the person that they pretended to be when you met them.
Right.
That's not who they really are. And frankly, one of the things that, in talking to the therapist, I asked her specifically about, is this something they can get better from? Like if if you really love this person and you want them to be better, and she said, in the psychological community, the belief is that no, there's no cure for this because they lack the ability for introspection and real true self-analysis. They're the victim in their own stories. Always. And even when they're trying to make amends, there's always this underlying sort of woe is me, pity party, like here's all the burdens I have to deal with, but because I'm such a big person, I'm going to help you with whatever it is. They always manage to make it about themselves, and it's never about you. And if you bring 3 issues to the table, they're going to talk about something totally unrelated. They're not going to directly address the issues, or their solution for any problems is always going to be something that is benefiting them. It's never really going to be about you.
Yeah. And I think and it breaks my heart because I've been there, done that. So to know that there are women and men, but most my focus is the women. I'm not discriminating, but I'm just saying.
That's what we've experienced with.
And it breaks my heart because now I can identify those signs, and it makes me want to just shout it to the world and just let women know that you don't have to tolerate that. That's not normal. And it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to speak your truth. It's okay. And if you get to the point where you feel threatened and all, if there's systems and things where you can,
and let me be clear. There is a difference between domestic abuse, and and we've both experienced those things as well separately, and narcissistic behavior. Sometimes they do go hand in hand, but not always. It is still abuse. It is still abuse if you are living with somebody who never lays a hand on you, but plays head games with you constantly, makes you feel like you're crazy, makes you feel like you are always doing something wrong. If you feel like you're walking on eggshells at home, that's not normal. And if you suspect or feel like you might be in a relationship with a narcissist and you're not sure what to do, I promise you, Google it. Narcissistic behavior, narcissistic relationships. I was actually shocked when I started to really research it.
I researched it too.
Yeah, and when you start reading it, because some of the things that you have accepted as normal, you're going to suddenly be just shocked when you read these things and what's not normal.
Right.
You know, when they give you the cold shoulder, when they freeze you out, when they badmouth you in front of other people or put you down, when they try to isolate you, when they, you know, make promises and don't deliver, but make that your fault, something you did.
Somehow,
Yeah.
it's back on you, and it took years for me to understand. Like, wait, but you said that, I didn't say that, so
Right.
how is it my fault? And I've never really gotten to the point when I was in it. I never gotten to the point where I would really speak up for myself. And I started researching and started reading about it. And I was like, wait. So this behavior, and then you can really check
Everything.
everything. And your mind is like, so this is what it is.
Yep.
So I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
I'm really not crazy. And then for me, I got to the point where I said, you know what? No, I'm not taking this crap anymore. And it's like I had to put my big girl panties on, and I had to really stand up for myself. But I do remember when I was really, really in it, I do remember crying out to God, and I remember telling him, listen, if you don't get me out of this situation, I'm not gonna make it, or he's not gonna make it, because I cannot continue. And when I started realizing what I was going through and why I was going through it, I said, wait, I'm not going to tolerate this behavior anymore. I'm bigger than that. And not that, you know, and at the time I didn't know what it was. But then when I started, like you said, I started reading on it, and even if you just Google, as soon as you put in the NAR, sometimes
tons of stuff is going to come up. Absolutely.
It's amazing. Even Google. Even YouTube have all kind of different things on it, and I'm telling you, you can compare that list to what you're going through and what you're facing, and you'll be amazed.
Yep.
You will be amazed, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to touch on that subject, because it's so important.
One of the books that I highly recommend, if you feel like you are in that kind of relationship, and this was recommended by my therapist, and there's a list in here, and the list, when they go through the list, I think it says something like, if like 5 of these things are present in your relationship, then you're likely involved with a narcissist and you're in a verbally abusive relationship. So when she suggested this to me, I was like, oh no, he didn't call me names, he didn't yell at me. I mean, unless we had an argument, you know, sometimes he told me to shut up, but I didn't see myself as being in a verbally abusive relationship. When I read this book, and I got it on audiobook, but there's a list, and I want to say it's like 5 or 8 of these things. There's like 22 things on the list. I kid you not, 22 things were present in my relationship.
Wow.
And this was the point, because this was relatively early on after I had moved out, that I realized how far gone I had gotten, because I didn't recognize any of this. So the name of the book is The Verbally Abusive Relationship, and it's by Patricia Evans. So if you Google that, it's available on audiobook, it's available on Amazon, but I definitely highly recommend that.
Repeat her name again?
Huh?
Repeat her name again?
It's Patricia Evans, and the book is The Verbally Abusive Relationship.
Okay.
How to recognize it and how to respond.
Wow.
And it's just shocking, because I would never have said that I was in a verbally abusive relationship.
Wow.
But it's the subtle It's the put downs. It's the comments about what you're wearing. It's the snide remarks about what you've cooked, or the sort of dictatorial tones. It's surprising. It is absolutely surprising, and that book really helped me to kind of turn the corner in how I deal with and respond in that relationship now, as we have to co-parent, a teenager.
Wow. Oh, yeah, it's amazing, and I just wanted, I don't know why it was just heavy on my heart to talk about it, but then, you don't want to overstep your boundaries by asking, and I wasn't sure if you were willing to, what I mean?
If it helps one woman, or man, but one woman, find her voice and stand up.
Because that's the goal.
It is,
absolutely. That's the purpose of,
get your power back.
And that's the purpose of opening yourself up, because, so many people are they don't have a voice, or they don't have no one that they can talk to, or, and then you have to worry about, being talked about, or being look at a certain way. So that's why we tend to keep everything inside.
You don't want people to think less of you because you've allowed yourself to be in this kind of situation as well.
Right, and sometimes, the symptoms is there before we even get into these relationships, but we choose to ignore them. And then once we get in them, it seems like it takes forever to get out.
It does.
Oh, God. It's like you get yourself in it, but it's not. It's easy to get in, but it's hard to get out.
It is.
But,
and that's why it's so important to listen to those signs and red flags.
Yeah. And you can also, find someone that you can talk to. Find someone that you don't have to really worry about discussing your business with others. I don't care if it's one person that you can just let it all just open up to, and just get it all for you. And once you do that, you will continue slowly but surely. You will definitely find your voice.
Absolutely.
You will definitely find
talking
your voice.
about it with somebody makes all the difference. Not just anybody. Obviously, you need to find that person who's going to be your advocate, who's going to listen and help you unload all that. But just saying it out loud makes all the difference.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Oh, I feel good. Okay, guys, we're going to end this video, and I want to thank Jennifer so much for her patience. I want to thank her so much for her time, because I'm still learning this YouTube thing. I'm still learning my equipment. We started the video first, and then we had to stop and start all over again because I'm just all over the place. But anyway, so that's it. And if you guys will comment, like, and share this video, I would really, really appreciate it. I'm going to definitely have Jennifer back, because there's some other things that I think she can bring to the channel, and just help us along the way. So thank you guys. I love you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.